Range of motion. Where's our range of motion in a squat?
Under your knee, your butt under your knee.
Get it all the way down. Engaged though. So it's gonna be very conducive to the person's range of motion, number one, obviously, right? But we do want to get them to be able to, you know, get all the way down and up. Now, if they don't have, I usually wear squat shoes because my mobility is not the best, but if they don't, get in one of these things, which is awesome, and they're going to squat all the way down. I'm engaged, right? If I want my quads to really work, I need to get the most amount of knee flexion as I can, right? So I'm kind of cheating myself if I get to here, right? I'm not really I'm doing some, but not as much as if I can get all the way down and come all the way up. Now, when I coach, can somebody coach me from the ground up a squat? This is one of those like technical ones that I'll help you through it. So someone's coaching me a squat for a beginner, an absolute newbie in the gym. I'm gonna pick you. So I'm here, I'm the beginner, and I'm in here and I'm all beginnery. How do I squat, sir?
So first off, to get your feet a little bit wider than your shoulder.
Okay, so where's shoulder width apart?
And then get your toes a little bit outward. Then get all the way forward, like the one we talked about.
Shh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shh.
And then move your knees forward as you squat, and then tilt it a little bit outside. Imagine that you're turning your knees outside. Yes. Then up. Can you do another one? Let me see how. Up. I think this is probably correct.
You gotta understand, like, no one's learned any of this stuff in school. No one has. Unless you take a course, no one knows any of this. And going online and watching YouTube is pretty good, but not enough. So you have to talk to them like they're fucking stupid. Sorry, it sounds harsh, but talk to them like they're 8-year-olds. When I say show width apart to some people just means show width apart. Shoulder width apart is the inside of the heel to the shoulder. So the difference between shoulder width apart is from here, this is shoulder width apart. That's very narrow. So when you tell people shoulder width apart, tell them that we're gonna measure from, basically, we're gonna go from the inside of your leg as the shoulder width apart. So a little outside shoulder width apart for me is here. A little outside shoulder width apart for someone else who thinks they know what or thinks this part of their foot is gonna be here. And there's no way in heck I'm squatting like that, right? So good job on the cue, but think like pull it back even more. Like we're gonna go from shoulder width apart, we're gonna go from the insides of your heel to the shoulder, to your outside of your shoulders. Then I'm here, right? Then I want my toes, you know, at around 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock. Right? I know what 11 o'clock is. 12 o'clock is my crotch. Here's 11 o'clock, here's 1 o'clock. Here's 3 and here's 9. Right? Here's 2 and here's 10. Too wide. Everybody knows what a clock looks like. Right? So easy from here. Then what I like to say is pretend there's a piece of paper on the ground and I'm trying to rip it. Right? That's gonna create that external rotation that I wanna make sure that my knees are aligned with my toes. So I'm gonna rip that piece of paper until my knees are aligned with my toes and I'm gonna stop. I don't want to continuously end up doing this, right? So from the floor, feet out, a little bit outside shoulder width apart from the heel, from the inside of the foot, toes at 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock. Pretend you're trying to open a piece of paper, or rip a piece of paper on the floor, and then when your knees are aligned with your toes, we're gonna stop. We're gonna engage our core, we're gonna bend a little bit at the hip. We're gonna push the hips back a little bit, but we're still gonna be engaged. So we're gonna push hips back while we're saying, shh. There you go, use that cue, perfect. Then from there, my hips and my knees are going to break at the same time. When you say just the hips, the knees, people do this. They'll do one or the other. They'll do this, or do this. But if I say both at the same time and I direct them that way, my hips and my knees are gonna go the opposite direction. So that gives them an idea that way. And my chest is gonna stay up, right? If you see that they get down and they're like, you know, you see it already happening, then you're like, bam, immediately. Just assume that people, this is like, they're honestly like Asian background have like, I don't know what, you guys have awesome ankle mobility. Everybody can squat, it's weird, it's awesome. So I'm sure if you guys have Asian athletes, they're probably gonna have really good ankle mobility, right? But I would assume that they don't, regardless. I'm gonna assume they're gonna come in here stiff as a board, not really good at moving, and I'm gonna immediately put them on something anyway, because it's gonna be beneficial for them anyway, right? Because it's gonna help increase their knee flexion. Now, why do we use plates for the back of the heels? What does that do? Your ability to squat is gonna be based on 3 things: your tibia shin length, your femur length, and your torso length. So what elevating your heels does, it just increases your shin length. So it naturally goes over your toes. right? If you're tall and you got like short tibia or short shin bone, whatever, long femur, this happens all the time. Some people just are not going to be able to squat extremely well, so we have to like add a couple of things to help them out. Do you know why babies are really good at squatting? We make this argument of like, you know, we used to be babies. I used to say it. We used to be babies and we could squat pretty easy. You ever see babies that are like this and they're up and they're perfect. You know why? Their head's big. The head's massive. It's way bigger, so it keeps them balanced. Once you get older, your body grows into your head. So things start to come off a little more, right? So it's finding that center of mass in our squat. Right? So, great. Now, when it comes to actually putting a bar on somebody's back, you don't need to. If they have it and they have the ability to do so, then yes. So we can go through that. But I'm going to goblet squat everybody until the cows come home, until they can do that properly. And here's why. A couple things first is when you're doing this, don't let them hold it like this, because right away they're trying to push it in and their back is round and they do this. And you see this. It's a goblet squat for a reason. It's a goblet. You know, I think people drank like this back in the day with goblets. Either way, you're underneath here and it naturally depresses my shoulders. I'm already up here. And then when I perform the lift, it's easier for me to stay straight. And while I'm doing this, my core is being worked a lot. So I'm not only working my legs, I'm working my core, my torso. I had someone arguing like, well, you can't really do that with you. What if it's hard for you to hold a 45-pound dumbbell or kettlebell? I'm like, well, what's the difference between holding the bar on your back then? The weight in your bar on your back is gonna do this for you. Because most people can't get here. Their mobility is not that good, and if it is, as soon as they get a bar on their back, they're here. Because uncomfortable, and everything else is. So we load them here first. And then when it's easy from that, they have more confidence and more strength, then we might put them on a bar. But a squat movement is a squat movement. Doesn't mean you have to be on a bar. Doesn't mean you can't do hack squats, goblet squats, front squats. Doesn't always have to be back squats. And to be honest, I'd rather have someone do a front squat and a goblet squat than a back squat 9 times out of 10. It's a more natural position. Your body's gonna be more upright when you're squatting. From here, I'm naturally here. It's very simple. If I have a bar on my back, like immediately I'm already kind of like it's pushing me forward for me to be here. If I was in front here and doing a front squat, if I had better mobility here, right? Please don't load the bar like this either. I see powerlifters do it all the time and it bugs me. So let's all do a goblet squat. For me to create power, it's my glutes, my ability for me to create flexion, extension. No one jumps like this, right? Because I can't jump that high. So for me to jump high, I need to straight up. So think about when the down, the knees, I'm straight. Flex through the quads. Good. Now don't bounce the bottom with your at the bottom. Sink in the bottom. Sink it all the way. More. Good. A little more. Further down. Further. There you go. Up. There you go. See how much I have to focus on making sure this doesn't move. I do this all the time with my athletes, right? Because it makes them focus on keeping themselves in alignment. Because this is gonna dictate exactly what your body's doing. If it's flopping around, that's gonna flop around. And as hard as this looks, right? A lot harder, right?
Yeah.
Next. Straighten it up, there you go. Go all the way down, let it go all the way, there you go. So whenever you get an athlete comes in and says, should I be doing 3-plate squats? Give them a kettlebell and toss this on top and say, control this first. And when they do like 4 reps and like, oh my God, my legs are burning. So you just added less than an ounce of water on top of it. You don't need a bar on your back. But don't get me wrong, guys. You can back squat. There's nothing wrong with back squatting. And just know when to load the spine. Right? Right? So watch this. This is gonna really help us out more. I want you to chest up. Chest, let it pull you in. There you go. There you go. Now I want you to think your chest up, but back a bit, right? Keep it inside you more. There you go. Now open your chest up more. There you go. Good. Take your time. Take your time. There you go. Good. All the way down. Take your time. Take your time. Deep. Deep. Right? You're a great example too. Now we can see his body type, right? Long tibia, long torso. He naturally is squatting like this. which is fine. So we have to make sure we adjust and make sure that, you know, you're very strong here. I need this to be, you know, work on your mobility so you can get back. Shoulders back and away. There you go, right? Now that back's nice and straight. Now tight core from here. Now push your hips back a bit. There you go. That's where you want your back to look like when you're going down. And strong through your core, right? Oop. Next, you. I want your toes to be locked into the floor. So grab your toes in the ground. There you go. Now go. All the way down, down, down. Good. 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 Yeah. So when we're squatting, guys, these shoes are pretty cool because I can tell when I'm locking my feet because you can see my toes do this. But I can always tell when someone's squatting because they squat and their feet kind of do this. So when you're squatting, and like Mike made a good point too, is like, yeah, you shouldn't be really worrying too much about your feet, but for beginners or mostly anybody, maybe think about, especially when we do RDLs, think of like our toes are here for a reason, right? If we didn't need toes, we wouldn't have toes, right? They're here to give us balance. I cut off one of those digits on your toes, you're walking really, really funny. So let's not take our toes out of the equation when we're squatting. So I want to make sure that I'm gripping the floor from here. Right? I'm engaged the entire time. It's gonna give me a lot more control. Think about like doing a pull-up without your hands, without your fingers. It's not gonna work. You need to pull it still. You don't really need to grip as much, but you need to be engaged there, right? Next. Now, what I wanna make sure too is like, don't think we have to be so wide to squat, right? For us to really, to engage external rotation, the wider feet are, the harder it is. Now for sumos, then that's a little different. But squatting wise, really only be outside shoulder width apart so we can really work on our mobility. From there, go ahead. Chest up, head up. Good. Now remember, pull yourself down, don't bounce to the bottom. Then drive up. There you go. See how much more range of motion we get all the way down. We're really working that quad. Full range of motion, full flexion, full extension. Guys, honestly, remember before I was like, say push, pull your hand like this and this just go. Or shh, shh. Do you feel your erectors engaged too? So if we don't have our erector, if we don't engage here, then our erectors aren't on either. We used to call them power columns in football. They're the two things right next to our spine, like, you know, protecting our spine. When those are disengaged, you're just expecting your spine to your spine's not supposed to do that, right? It's guided down. Like remember, our muscular skeleton wraps around our skeleton. So we need that to be engaged to make sure that we're not putting our body in harm's way. So if you're feeling your lower back, 9 times out of 10, if someone feels the lower back when doing any kind of hinging or squatting, is because they're not engaging this, right? Who's next? Now, here's a reason why. How many people have clients older than 40? Great. Here's why you should be squatting, goblet squats or whatever. It's not to have great, powerful, strong legs and sexy whatever. It's because when you're 60 and you gotta go down and do this, or pick something underneath something, or bend over, or the ability to catch yourself before you spill and fall. It's your strength in your legs to be able to squat. So go ahead and squat. Your goal for your athletes isn't to squat just so they can lift weights. It's so they can get into a position healthy. Sit down on a toilet, sit down on a couch. Great. Good, good. Just think of that when you're coaching. Yes, it's good to look good, but the byfactor of having a strong body is having a good looking one, right? So I'm always emphasizing that to every athlete that I coach. Whether you're a performance athlete or you're just trying to look good. That's the byfactor of being a good performance athlete is a good physique. A good healthy athlete has a strong looking healthy body. I remember one of my coolest feedback from my client, she's in her 60s. She's like, oh, and she is weird. She likes cleaning the floors on her hands and knees. And she was like, I can get on my hands and knees with ease now, it's awesome. And then I was like, cool, use a mop, but like whatever. But it was cool that she's like, I can just see her in her head being able to just be like, and get back up with ease. My mother is 80 this year, and good luck, she can't do that. She can walk around, she looks pretty good, but like when it comes to her actually like bending and moving, it's kind of sad, right? So we're not just here to make people look good, we're here to make people healthy. Looking good is the reward from being healthy.